We're always told to drink a lot of water throughout the day, but have you ever wondered what happens when you drink too much water? Well, 35-year-old Ashley Summers drank 64 ounces of water in a span of 20 minutes and passed away from water toxicity. Ashley, her husband, and 2 daughters were at Lake Freeman in Indiana when she began feeling dehydrated. So she drank 4 bottles of water because for some reason she wasn't able to quench her thirst. Ashley complained about having a horrible headache and she began to feel lightheaded. When she got home with her family, she passed out in the garage and she was taken to the hospital where the doctor said she had brain swelling. Ashley never woke up and she was pronounced dead from water toxicity. A toxicologist said that this is more likely to happen to someone who's extremely dehydrated, which will cause them to drink too much water and not enough sodium or electrolytes. So remember, bring more than just water on really hot days, especially if you're under the sun for a long period of time.
This is the unsolved case of Jessica Patrick. Jessica was last seen on August 31st, 2018, leaving Mountain View Motel in Smithers. The hotel was directly off Highway 16, which is also known as the Highway of Tears. She was 18 years old and had a young child. Her family reported her missing on September 3rd. They also got a search group together, and on September 15th, family found human remains located near a ski hill just outside Smithers. And on September 19th, they were confirmed to be Jessica's. Since that time, the case has gone almost silent. No cause of death has been released and no suspects have been named. Her family has spoken out with their frustrations in the way the case was handled. They say from the moment Jessica went missing, it was not taken seriously enough. And they find their point validated in the fact that it took the family's own search to find their remains. They also say the communication from authorities has been the bare minimum with no progress being made. They feel frustrated that the federal government has spent a lot of time and money on the National Inquiry for Missing Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls but isn't putting much into action.
Photos taken before disaster. This little girl was sitting on a monster's lap for this picture. Let's enhance it with sharp AI. Ted Bundy raised Molly as his own, while he dated her mother for 7 years. Neither of them knew about his horrible crimes until he was arrested. A couple of months after this photo was taken, he sure played the part of the perfect family guy. So it must have been horrifying for them finding out the truth.
A tragic accident in Malibu, California, resulted in the deaths of 4 college seniors who were struck by a speeding BMW on Pacific Coast Highway. The driver, 22-year-old Fraser Michael Bom, was arrested on suspicion of vehicular manslaughter with gross negligence and later released on $50,000 bail. The victims, Neam Rolston, Peyton Stewart, Asha Weir, and Deslyn Williams, were all seniors at Pepperdine University. They were walking near parked cars when Bom lost control of his vehicle, causing a collision that tragically claimed their lives. Witnesses reported that Bom attempted to flee, but was apprehended by students from a nearby fraternity. Bom, a former high school baseball player, hails from a wealthy family residing in a Malibu mansion overlooking the Pacific Coast Highway, near the accident site. Pepperdine University has mourned the loss of the 4 students and will hold a prayer service in their memory. Friends and loved ones paid heartfelt tributes, highlighting the victims' vibrant personalities and unique qualities. The crash is still under investigation, with officials indicating that speed likely played a role in this tragic event.
Never get this pedicure because you may end up losing all your toes like this woman did. In 2010, 29-year-old Victoria Kurthois went to Thailand and got one of those fish pedicures and ended up getting an infection and had to get all her toes on her right foot amputated. I remember when these pedicures became so popular at one point, and basically it involves putting your feet into a tank filled with a specific type of fish. These fish then begin to eat the dead skin on your feet and it leaves your skin feeling smooth and clean. And I don't know about you guys, but this stuff really freaks me out. When Victoria got back home from her vacation, she began feeling sick, and after multiple tests, she was diagnosed with a serious bone infection. It turns out that the water used in Victoria's pedicure was contaminated with a bacteria that entered her body through a wound on her foot from a previous toe surgery. Victoria's big toe was first amputated to contain the disease. However, it didn't get rid of the infection fully, so she had to remove all her toes. This is how Victoria's foot looked like after. So moral of the story is don't participate in these fish spas because you really never know.
Yeah, we're here. Yes! Sheriff's office. Safe to come out.
Yeah, he said it's safe to come out.
Now, we're not willing to take that risk right now. I can't hear you. We're not taking that risk right now. Okay, well, come to the door with my bag, bro.
Yeah, bro.
He said bro.
He said bro. Red flag.
I'm sure you guys have seen this face before. This is Fernando Johnson, who goes by the rap name F. Dot. If you're from the UK and you listen to Central C, you'd know that him and F. Dot are great friends. Fernando Johnson, aka F. Dot, was an aspiring rapper killed in an ambush outside his home in the early hours of January 26. He was called a local hero who was looked up to by many children. In the early hours of January 26, Fernando Johnson was ambushed by two men. As the police rushed to the scene at around 2:15 AM, the 23-year-old was pronounced dead at the scene. Two fans of Mr. Johnson's music paid tribute to him and remember the time the rapper stopped to speak to them when they were celebrating their exam results last year. One of the fans said, "We saw Fernando in his car, he was playing his music and Central C's music. We started to sing along and he rolled down the window and he said, 'Stay off the streets are not good.' He also said, 'Stick to school and keep grinding,' which showed that his street life was no more." And that's the story of Fernando Johnson, Central C's dear friend.
These 5 men have vanished after boarding a submersible to visit the Titanic. Last Sunday, 5 people boarded a submersible, which is kind of like a submarine in Newfoundland, Canada, but has lost contact with the operator only 1 hour and 45 minutes into the trip. The Titan was built for tourists to visit the wreck of the Titanic, which is located 12,400 feet underwater. It has 96 hours of oxygen available, which means that the people inside will run out of oxygen by Thursday. The Titan can reach 13,123 feet underwater, and it's operated using what looks like a modified game controller. The 5 people who boarded the Titan are known to be wealthy businessmen as well as a 19-year-old boy. But what's interesting to me is that everyone had to sign a waiver accepting that this submersible can potentially cause their death. The Titan only started taking people down in 2021, and it's been reported that there's been so many issues with this process. And keep in mind that it's not cheap to do this excursion. Everyone paid $250,000. Nevertheless, I hope the Titan is found and everyone is brought back home safe.
Morbid Facts, Part 153. Per Olin, known by his stage name Dead, was the lead singer for the Norwegian black metal band Mayhem, as well as the Swedish death metal band Morbid. At age 10, he was attacked by some bullies who injured him so badly that he was legally declared dead for a few minutes. After this incident, Per began an unhealthy obsession with anything related to death. He collected dead birds, wore corpse paint when he performed, and even routinely cut himself while on stage or in front of friends. Olin was believed to have suffered from Cotard syndrome, a mental disorder characterized by the belief that you are truly dead and don't exist in reality. In 1991, Dead took his own life by slicing his wrists and throat and shooting himself in the forehead with a shotgun. He left a note that was very brief because he didn't believe that he was alive in the first place. His body was soon discovered by one of his bandmates, who immediately ran to a nearby store and bought a disposable camera instead of calling 911. He took multiple photos of his dead friend and would later use one of them as cover art for a future album.
You guys have to stop what you're doing and watch this documentary with me. Love Is One is one of the craziest cult documentaries I've ever seen. The cult was founded by this woman, Amy Carlson, who referred to herself as Mother God. And this is actual footage of when she was found in a mummified state wrapped in Christmas lights with her eyes missing. The whole series is so bizarre, and I can't believe these people actually believe the things that they're saying. The involvement of Robin Williams really threw me off. There's interview with members and a lot of video footage because they were recording themselves all the time. I just can't get over the way this woman's health deteriorated throughout the series. All of the episodes are available to watch on Max. If you guys have been watching, let me know what you think.
The 30-year search for Nikki Allen's killer has finally come to an end. Nikki Allen was just 7 years old when she was lured into a derelict building and brutally unalived. The search for the missing girl lasted about 12 hours before they found her, but the hunt for her killer lasted 3 decades. Nikki was described as a bright and sparky child who was always a mummy's girl and had a beautiful smile. She was also seen as quite a clingy child to anyone that she knows, and she wouldn't trust strangers easily, so the person that took her had to be someone that she knew. Nikki went missing on a cold October night in 1992, and the news of her disappearance travelled so fast. Dozens of friends, families, neighbours were all looking around and searching for Nikki in the area of Hendon on the south bank of River Ware. It ended in horror and heartbreak as the morning after, a teenage boy had discovered Nikki's unalive body in a derelict building. On the day of Nikki's disappearance, Sharon, her mother, was doing some washing in their flat, and the youngest of the siblings was sleeping, and Stacey and Nikki were watching television. The noise of the washing machine, however, was giving Sharon a little bit of a headache, and luckily enough, her parents lived in the same flat building as them, so she took Nikki and they both went upstairs to Sharon's mother and father's flat so that she could get some painkillers. When they got to the flat, Sharon's mother was actually vacuuming, and Nikki didn't like the sounds of that. It was giving her a little bit of a headache, so she decided to go back down to their flat. This is the last time that Sharon, Nikki's mother, saw Nikki alive. As soon as Nikki's body was found, the police honed in on a local man called George Herron. He was actually 24 years old, and he was questioned for about 3 days. But because he was under interrogation, he actually gave a false confession. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to do a part 2.
Imagine murdering your girlfriend because she wanted to leave you. Trigger warning for graphic content. 19-year-old Ashley Wadsworth and 23-year-old Jack Seppel met in 2015 on Facebook. When they first started talking, Jack was 15 and Ashley was 12, so they had been talking for years. The two developed an online relationship but wouldn't meet in person until November 2021, when Ashley graduated and got a visa to go visit the UK for 6 months. Considering that Ashley lived in Vernon, Canada, and Jack lived 4,500 miles away in Chelmsford, Essex, she could not wait to get her arms around him. The first few weeks that Ashley was there, she was extremely happy. She even reported to her family that Jack was perfect, their relationship was perfect, and that he was exactly the guy she thought that he was. However, as time went by, Jack's true side started to come out, and it was awful. He started monitoring her social media and requested all of her passwords to see who she was speaking to and what she was saying. Then started belittling her and being verbally abusive before being physically abusive. He would even do this while she was on video chat with her loved ones. Ashley's loved ones tried to convince her to come back home, but Ashley stayed with her boyfriend and tried to work things out. On February 1st, Ashley went to her neighbors, screaming, panicking, and banging on her door. She told her neighbor that Jack had beaten her and thrown their cat into the wall. She went on to explain how Jack had caught her looking at a photo of a semi-nude girl, had called her a lesbian, proceeded to assault her, and then smashed her phone. The neighbor went over to talk to Jack, who stated that at the time he was very calm and even apologized to Ashley in front of her before she headed to an appointment. However, this was the final straw for Ashley, and she wanted to go home. She called her parents and they booked her a flight home. However, she would have to wait 2 days before she could leave because she needed to take a COVID test before being able to get on the plane. Unfortunately, Ashley would never make it back home. On February 1st, when 2 of Ashley's friends went to go check on her and got no response, they called the authorities. When the police showed up at their home and got no answer as well, they broke into the flat. When they finally got inside, they saw the lifeless, bloody body of Ashley lying in their bed, while Jack was on the phone with his sister on FaceTime showing her Ashley's body. Jack confessed to what he had done to the authorities and was taken in. In total, Jack inflicted around 90 wounds on Ashley's body, mostly around her chest, before strangling her. Jack was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 23 years and 6 months to be served before he's eligible for parole.
With that, the court having read the PSI and being fully familiar with the defendant and the underlying facts of this case, believes that it is in the best interest of justice as well as proportionate to the needs of this case to sentence the defendant as follows. As it relates to docket 2022-279-506 FC, count 1, terrorism causing death. Sentences of the court is that defendant shall serve life without the possibility of parole, credit for 8 days served. Counts 2 through 5, homicide, first degree, premeditated murder, juvenile defendant. Sentence of the court is that defendant shall serve the rest of his life without the possibility of parole with the Michigan Department of Corrections, credit for 8 days served. On counts 6 through 12, assault with intent to murder. On each of the counts, defendant is sentenced to 18 years and 9 months to 80 years with the Michigan Department of Corrections, credit for 8 days served. On counts 13 through 24, those being felony firearm, defendant is sentenced to 2 years with the Michigan Department of Corrections on each of those counts with credit for 730 days served.
Does this picture make you uncomfortable? What if I told you that this is a completely real thing that happens? This is called the Teratoma Tumor, and it affects 1 per 20 to 40,000 people. Teratoma is a rare type of germ cell tumor, and it can contain bone, muscle, teeth, hair, veins, and in some cases, people have found eyeballs. It is unclear what causes a teratoma tumor. Researchers believe that it comes from an inherited disease that affects your nervous system, your genital area, and your lower spine. Oftentimes, these tumors are non-cancerous, but some of them can contain cancer cells. Teratoma tumors affect people of all ages. And what's so fascinating about this tumor is that it is a germ cell, much like the same cells that create a fetus or like a sperm cell. And because it's this special type of cell, it can create all different types of tissue and bone. But don't be alarmed, if something like this was living in your body, I'm sure you would know. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!
The wife of a plastic surgeon in Florida died after undergoing several procedures at her husband's office, and now her death is being investigated. November 21st, 33-year-old Hillary Brown was receiving procedures from her husband, Dr. Ben Brown, at his office at Restore Plastic Surgery in Gulf Breeze, Florida. During the procedures, she ended up seizing and going into cardiac arrest and then fell into a coma. She remained in the coma for a week until she was taken off life support because she had gone without oxygen to her brain for too long. And now the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office is investigating her death. So let's talk about what happened. Hillary had 3 children from a previous marriage and has been married to Ben Brown for about 2 years. Dr. Ben Brown is a practicing plastic surgeon in Florida, but he has a history of malpractice lawsuits against him. His practice, Restore Plastic Surgery, currently has 2 malpractice lawsuits open against it. Only one lists him as the defendant, though, and it is still ongoing. The plaintiffs in this case, Wendy and William Carden, allege that Brown used foreign materials in a post-mastectomy reconstructive breast surgery for Wendy without her consent back in 2018, and that this caused infection and sepsis at the surgery site. The lawsuit also claims that Wendy suffered nerve damage and other permanent injury due to the extension and position of her arms during the prolonged surgery, alleging that Brown, quote, negligently failed to periodically monitor the position of the upper extremities. Brown is currently facing that malpractice lawsuit, but he now may be facing more serious charges depending on the result of the investigation into his wife's death. At 4:15 p.m. on November 21st, Ben Brown called 911 from the Restore Plastic Surgery office. The notes from the call indicate, quote, a female patient was in cardiac arrest after potentially being over-medicated. Hillary's father, Marty Ellington, said that Brown told him that he was out of the the medication they typically use, so he used something different for her surgeries. There are questions about that and also questions about the presence of other medical personnel during the surgeries. November 24th, 3 days after the surgeries, Ben Brown posted on social media, quote, "We need prayers for a miracle. Hillary had a cardiac arrest on Tuesday afternoon." He wrote, "We called 911 and started CPR. Her heart came back, but her brain is not doing well. Hillary Ellington Brown, you are my soulmate, my world, my everything. Please come back, please." A statement provided by a PR firm on behalf of Ben Brown's family said Ben was performing minor and routine services on Hillary. It also said that all medical protocols were followed and additional medical staff were present at the time of the procedures. The death is being investigated because, according to Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office spokesperson Jill Durkin, any time a death is unexpected or occurs under unusual circumstances, they investigate. Durkin said the cause and manner of death is pending the receipt of the autopsy protocol from the District 1 Medical Examiner's Office. The autopsy protocol typically takes several months, as it usually is dependent on extensive laboratory and toxicology tests, as well as the information gathered by our major crimes detectives concerning the circumstances of the death. Hillary's parents, Marty and Dixie Ellington, said that she was full of fire and energy since she was a girl, and they just want answers about what happened to their daughter. Marty said, "We want answers. We haven't been given answers. If it's a mistake, it was a mistake, but it doesn't bring my daughter back. I don't want his money. I don't want anything. All I want is an answer because I think that we owe that to my daughter." The investigation will likely take a few months, and like Marty said, if it was a mistake, then it was a mistake. But because it was an extremely unexpected death during this medical procedure, it is being investigated. And hopefully the truth about what happens will come out. Rest in peace, Hillary.
Second man's been arrested in the murder of lone wolf bikie Yusuf Nagliaza, who was killed last year at Rhodes. And this is a major breakthrough in this murder investigation.
It is. It's one of the biggest murders we've seen in the city gang war that's been unfolding. Yusuf Nagliaza was well known to everybody in the underworld because it was alleged that he had killed Comanchero bikie boss Mick Howie.
And had gone around basically saying he'd got away with murder.
Yeah, because he got off at trial, but he told everybody pretty much, "I did it, I'm just too good and I beat the system." So last June he got his comeuppance. You know, there's a lot of people who didn't like him, and anyway.
He was known to be, involved in standover, all sorts of criminal activity where he made a lot of enemies, and it all came to a crashing halt in a car park of Rhodes.
His unit block last June. And so police have now made 2 arrests. They made one in April, and Wednesday morning, they arrested Abdul Rahman Ataya out in Sydney's northwest. They pulled him over in the middle of the street, dragged him from his car, and they will allege that he was involved in the planning and coordination of Nagliaza's murder.
You've got hold of a lot of detail over what the police are going to allege in this, haven't you?
Yeah.
And how he came undone, basically.
Yeah.
What they'll allege.
We've run a story at dailytelegraph.com.au about essentially what the police case is against Abdul Rahman Ataya and Mohammed Hosni Khalid, who was arrested in April. And it stems through them having an alleged murder base at a home in Hinchinbrook.
Like a little mini headquarters in a safe house?
Where they got together before.
A lot of detail in how they...
Yeah, in the preparation and planning of that murder and where they allegedly went afterwards.
And one of the most amazing detail is that police are going to allege that there was an argument between the accused and his partner, which was videoed on her phone. That's actually going to play a big part in the police case against him.
Yeah, so there was an argument between Abdul Rahman Ataya and his partner that police alleged was over her being suspicious of his whereabouts. He wasn't answering his phone. She couldn't find him. He wasn't saying where he was going, allegedly. And the reason that he wasn't telling her, police alleges that he was out planning a murder.
Yeah.